Hello. So this evening we are going to take a look at the Blackbird Simulations PC6 in-flight simulator. I received an email this afternoon from Blackbird informing me that the stage 2 of the PC6 was released. So this is a midlife upgrade that they have been promising for quite some time. And the major difference, there's nothing externally that you're going to notice about it. The major difference is inside. We now have a steam gauge version or an analog gauge version of the PC6. So several of the models available within the simulator now have the analog gauges. Okay, so let's go and take it for a fly and see how it behaves, because I don't know if you're anything like me, but you're probably getting a bit tired of aircraft coming out where not everything works, or it certainly doesn't work as it's labelled. And seeing as this has come out now after the latest round of sim updates, it would be nice to know if this behaves itself. Okay, so we'll go and turn the fuel shutoff valve on, and then we turn the batteries on, and then uncover the starter and the ignition, and we hit the starter and the ignition, bearing in mind the fuel is on cut-off at the moment, which is good. And we wait for the NG, as they call it, or the RPM, to get at least above 12, and it's got to 19, so that's the battery spinning the propeller at the moment. And then we can introduce fuel. So we move the the fuel condition to idle, and you see the temperature shot up then to about 700. If it had gone beyond there, that would have been a problem. And you can make it do that. If you introduce fuel before you start the ignition, it will shoot round into above 1,000 and it won't come down, and you'll have wrecked the engine. Okay, so we turn the ignition and the starter back off. Notice we got away there without using the auxiliary fuel pump for the start. That's interesting. So now the engine's running, we can start the generator, we can reset the generator as well. We can turn off the cautions. We should have had the beacon light on. We'll do that now. There's nobody around, is there? Nobody saw us do that. Interesting. Okay, so the propeller condition now can go forwards, and now we'll get some serious speed out of the propeller. That's basically engaging the gearbox. If you look at a turboprop, there's two parts to the engine. There's the gas turbine that will be back here, or down here probably, that's taking all the air intake from the front. And then there's a huge gearbox and a drive shaft to the propeller shaft. So when you push the propeller condition forwards, you're not only affecting the pitch of the propeller, but you're basically engaging that gearbox to mesh and to increase in speed. Okay, so turn the landing light on. We don't need the fuel pumps, we've already started the generator and reset it. Okay, so let's go and turn the avionics buses on. Now notice in the glass cockpit version of this, you would have switched the avionics buses on first, or the second one at least, because the screen that had all of the engine gauges on was in the glass screen, so you needed to have the bus on first, but you don't need to do that anymore. Okay, we're going to be travelling east today, so I'm just going to go and make sure that's correct. I'm going to press B to shortcut setting the barometric pressure on the altimeter while we're waiting for the GPS to start up. We'll also go and turn on the transponder. So okay, the autopilot is now booted up and the ADF has as well. We don't need cockpit fans today. There is a temperature gauge somewhere around here. Yeah, it's behind the co-pilot over here. You can see it's actually quite hot outside, so it's about 17-18 degrees centigrade. Okay, so how do we get rid of the co-pilot? There's two ways of doing that. One way is to just go and modify the weights and balances. So we open the standard dialog, and we can go to the co-pilot weight and press 0 and press enter, and he disappears. You'll also notice you've got the external tanks here, which you saw that were outside. If we zero them out, you can see the airplane sags one side or the other. And if we look outside now, you'll see that the external tanks have disappeared. We have still got a weather radar out here. It does work. So if we press enter and enter, and we'll just let the alignment happen on the satellites, and then we'll have a quick look in the map in a moment, but we probably need to program our route, don't we, as well. So let's go and clear out the map on Little Nav Map. We're going to fly from Boonville over to Lampson Field just to try things out. So just waiting for the satellites to capture. There we go, we've got our position on the map. Now, I found a bug in this earlier when I was playing around with this to see if everything worked. If you use slew to turn the aircraft around before you switch the GPS on, it will not take any notice of the aircraft rotating, and the aircraft will appear pointing in the wrong direction forevermore. Okay, so something to be aware of. Be careful of using slew. I haven't tried it once the system is fired up, but certainly before you switch on the GPS, if you rotate the aircraft with slew, it will mess up the GPS. Okay, so let's go and turn this over to GPS mode on the course deviation indicator button. Let's go and program our flight plan in very quickly. So we'll just straighten up on this so we can see it. So we press the knob in. So again, this is checking, see if this works. We'll roll the inner knob to pull up the dialog for entering an airfield, and we need to key in D83. So D83 is Boonville. And press enter to accept. We do the same again for the next one. This is 102, which is Lampson Field. So 102. There we go, Lampson Field. Enter. So there's our basic flight plan. So we can pull the focus back out of there, press flight plan, and it's now rendered onto the map. And we can zoom out and see our entire route there, and there's a VOR we're going to try flying to just to make sure the radio navigation works as well. So before we take off, we'll put this back into VLOC mode on the CDI, and we'll tune in 11230 on the VOR radios. So we push this button in to switch over, and we want 11230, so 11230, there we go, and transfer it to active, and with a little bit of luck this will have fired up straight away. So if we turn our course around, we know we're going to be travelling east. Yep, there we go, it's working already, look. And we can spin the heading bug around to that as well, because we'll have a little play. We're going to try all the different modes out on the way just to make sure the aircraft works. As I said earlier, I've got a bit tired of aircraft not working as they say they should, so we're going to try things out along the way. Okay, rather than sit here burning fuel, should we get the airplane in the air? Oh look, there's a levitating car just flew by. Okay, so I come off the parking brake. Just turning the aircraft round. It turns very tightly, so it's never a problem. It has a small amount of positive thrust at takeover. Okay, so flaps to 50% for takeoff. Going to give it a bootful of rudder there to keep it straight, and the tail comes up and it becomes a lot more stable. It's trying to take off already, so just airspeed, look, with a little tiny amount of nose up and it comes off the ground. It just wants to fly basically. I'm not at full throttle, nowhere near full throttle, so I'm just edging the throttle forwards to accelerate. So if we have a look outside, see it flies very, very easily. Did we turn the lights on? Don't know if we did. Yeah, we've got the nav lights on and the beacon lights and the position and landing lights, so not a problem. Okay. Let's turn back round towards east and towards the course we wanted to be on. We actually want to fly towards that VOR first, don't we? So let's go and tune that in. So we're just getting the CDI to line up, and we'll hopefully get onto the same track, and then we'll have a play with the autopilot. Okay, so levelling us out. Let's go, before we engage the autopilot, let's go and set the altitude on it to, say, we're just coming up to 2,100 feet. So let's go for 4,000 feet and set. The climb rate defaults to 500 when it's not switched on. So if I press autopilot, it actually goes to, I think, yeah, it matches the vertical speed of the rate you are at when you engage your autopilot, which is good. So we're now climbing to 4,000 feet at 1,200 feet a minute, so we'll bring that down to 1,000 feet a minute. I mean, this aeroplane can do it, look, it's holding 100 knots. Okay, so at the moment we are not flying directly towards the VOR, so let's see if this is going to behave itself. So if I go to nav mode, will it go and capture? Yes, it's going to. It's going to go and try and fly into the VOR. But I mean, we're only a couple of miles away. We've got DME over here, look, distance measuring equipment. That should be replicated over here as well. 3.3 miles to go. Yeah. It's quite cool, isn't it? Because this gives you your ETA as well. Or ETE, I should say. Your en route time to the VOR. So yes, look, it's capturing the 60-degree radial into the VOR, which is quite cool. Obviously we're right on top of it almost, so it's going to be struggling to do it. Look, it's done a very good job though. I'm impressed with that. Okay, so once we fly over the top of the VOR, we probably want to be flying out of here on a, if I measure distance in here, we can see that we want to be on the 86-degree radial on the way out. So let's go and we'll wait for us to fly right over the top of it. So we've got 1.5 miles to go until we're on top of the VOR. We've just got to 4,000. Oh no, we got to 4,400. Did I not arm it? I didn't arm it. That was a bit silly, wasn't it? So again, so that's behaving absolutely as it should, which is great. So if I went back down to 4,000, there we go, it's armed it. So we're descending now at 500 feet a minute, back down to 4,000, so we'll come off the throttles. And we'll see if that was a really good test. So because I had not armed the altitude, it flew straight through it, and now we have armed it on the way down. We'll see if it captures. So we've gone over the top of the VOR now. Yeah, so we're right over, we're just going away from it. So this should, it hasn't changed, look. It's following the same radial, but it's holding on to nav mode. That's interesting. Quite commonly these kind of radio kits won't do that, so we want to be on the 86-degree radial. So let's go and turn the course to 86 degrees, which is going to be about there. So what we should find is the aeroplane will cut back across its route. It's not going to, is it? It's not doing it. Has that gone for heading mode? Now this may be because the divergence is too much, so let's go and turn the heading back across the direction we want to go to see if it will capture it. So it may be that it won't perform wonders. I mean, we are pushing it, to be honest. So you can see now we're going to come back towards the 86-degree radial. And it's from the VOR, that's indicated by the white arrow. Yeah, I just like doing these exercises to see how well an aeroplane behaves and within what parameters the various modes will behave. So we want to go back to nav mode. It won't go to nav mode. That's interesting. So that's broken. Let's just try toggling this. Now it's working. So there are some bugs. You just need to be very, very careful. So is it going to turn left now? On 2. It should turn left and go east essentially. Let's speed up a bit. Yeah, so now it's behaving. So I had to cycle the CDI there to get this to realise what nav mode it was in. So there's obviously a bug there. That's a shame, because otherwise it's been really good. Okay, let's go back to GPS mode then and let it go. So what it should do is crab across and join the 80-degree track, which you can see. Oops. You can see here, so it's going to go and fly along and join the magenta line on the GPS. So we'll get some speed on, shall we? Got a message showing up telling us what course to fly. Yes, we know all about that. So that's interesting though, that I had to toggle the CDI to get the autopilot to wake up and realise what it was doing. Which is not ideal, because then you end up just not trusting anything. It's a strange looking aeroplane, isn't it? It's like somebody had a kit for a garden shed, or several garden sheds, and maybe several lawnmowers or something, and thought, what can we make out of this? Can we make it fly? It has gone straight through the GPS track. So am I going to have to toggle it again? Oh, it was in heading mode. Of course, sorry, that was my fault. When I switched to GPS, it would have gone to heading mode automatically on the autopilot away from nav mode. So again, there's something else that's worth knowing about, and that's just standard behaviour. I just missed that one. So let's see if it will regain the track. We've only just overflown it. Yeah, so that's working. So by the same token then, can we go back to nav radio and get it to fly back to the 86-degree radial? Shall we try it? So if I change this mode should change based on what we just saw. So we go to VLOC mode and it's gone to heading mode. Then we can switch to nav mode. And it should fly back over to the 86-degree radial. I wonder how sharply it will do it. So here comes the CDI. So it should start banking right. Starting to hit turbulence from the hills now, aren't we? So it appears to be working. So we look on the map. Obviously I've not got the angle dialed in quite correctly, but we should end up flying towards the gap in the hills over there if we've got things right. And that's pretty much what's happening. Very good. Okay, let's start descending as well then to see if that works. So we're going to go for 2,500 feet. You have to go beyond 1,000 feet from where you are for the altitude arm to show up. And then we can use the up-down buttons to choose the rate to get there. So we'll do it at 500 feet or say 1,000 feet a minute. There we go. So we come off the throttle slightly just to make sure we don't accelerate too much on the way down. So we are armed for 2,500 feet and we're coming down, we're at 3,700 at the moment. Let's go for 2,000. What's the actual altitude of the airfield? So if I click on, is it going to let me? Show information for Lampson. 1,300, so I want 2,300 really. Just to get 1,000 feet over the ground. So we've got about 1,000 feet to go. So ideally, if we were going to fly the reciprocal, we want 100 degrees on the course. We really are thrashing this at the moment, aren't we? Trying out every mode. So we're going to heading mode now. Which way's the wind? So we've got a tailwind 6 knots, so we'll be good to come in on runway 28 when we get to Lampson Field. Let's just turn a few more degrees to the right. Now just out of interest, let's look at this closely and press D. There is drift. So the reason that I was wondering there about steering a few more degrees was it didn't look quite right, and so where we had been twisting and turning around in the sky, the gyro compass had drifted from the binnacle compass. So pressing D on the keyboard realigns it. Obviously what you're supposed to do in the real thing is you look closely at the magnetic compass and you then adjust this compass to suit. But does it actually have an adjuster? I mean, okay, we can press D, but I don't think it does. Because all it has is a heading knob and a course knob. That's interesting. Anyway. So we're just flying past the runway, we'll start losing some speed. So the speed is falling off. We'll go for flaps. Okay, so let's try out some of this short field ability that this thing has. So we're going to turn around quite steeply, pull the throttle back, go to full flaps. Keep us away from stalling just by going 50% throttle. So we're going to climb above the runway here and we're going to drop on it and engage reverse pitch on the propeller to see what happens. So we're very near stall speed. We're hanging out above the runway. Okay, ready? We are decelerating. We are decelerating. That is madness. So, what does the aeroplane behave like then over the runway? It's very, very stable. You see the wheels have just touched down. I'm interested to find out what kind of angle we can come down at, so I'm going to go full throttle. You can see just the flaps have lifted us off the ground there, with keeping the attitude the same. So I'm gently releasing the flaps as we climb out. Pull the throttle back away from maximum. Flaps are back up now. We're going to turn back round and make another approach, but we're going to get a lot higher this time and have a play with just how steeply we can come in. And okay, yes, we've read the stories that the operators don't like the pilots to use it, but I'm interested to find out how steeply we can come in. Hand flying it at the moment. So we're back up to 3,000 feet. Look at the climb rate on this thing. We've just come off that runway and are climbing out. It climbs like nobody's business. I mean, okay, we're only doing 60 knots, but we're like above 20 degrees nose up. So let's level ourselves out. How high are we now? Let's go and peer out the side if we can still see the runway down there. Because we're about to have some fun. Okay, let's turn back in. There's the runway, way down there. And we're going to go straight in from here. Or that's the plan anyway. We are still climbing above 20 degrees nose up. Just stalled there. So we are now at nearly 6,000 feet above this, so the runway's at 1,300, remember. So we're about 500 feet or so, 5,000 feet above the ground. Right, should we try it? So full flaps. And nose over. That's crazy. So we are not accelerating, we're doing 60 knots. That's absolute madness. Just to give you some idea how steeply we're coming in. So how much can we nose down further? And how much will it affect our speed? Oh my word. See, look, this isn't even showing the correct angle. It doesn't understand what on earth we're doing. Okay, back off of the reverse pitch. So we're just watching the indicated airspeed to make sure we don't get too slow as we flare out. Let's try stalling it then onto the runway. Do we get a stall warning? Oh, I think it was just about to go off when we dropped. That was interesting, wasn't it? Let's go and park our plane up and hand back a slightly battered aeroplane that's just been thrown all over the sky, had all the buttons pressed, and found one bug in the autopilot, but it was a really edge kind of case where we were flicking between modes and something got out of step somewhere. Otherwise it was fine. Should go and park next to Evel Knievel in his fork truck. Okay. So I've just cut the fuel conditions, so that should cut the engine. So we can turn the generator off, turn all the lights off, wait for the engine to stop, or wait for the propeller to stop spinning. You can start turning the electrics off. And there we go. It's quite cool, isn't it? There's obviously some other bits and pieces around the cockpit I didn't look at, like there's a gust lock that wedges in against the yoke. The various doors and things around the cockpit do work. So as you can see, so we can open all these various things. And the doors here should work now if you click the right places on them, which obviously I don't know how to do. That should have opened. Why did it not open? Is there a central lock somewhere that I'm missing? It's funny, you can... There's obviously a click spot somewhere. I mean, you can go to the tablet anyway. I'm sorry, I haven't researched all of the click spots. So we can... Let's go and try some of these various tie downs and chocks and go and have a look at them as well. Doors, toggle left front, right front. So yeah, you can see that, there we go, we've opened the doors now. And if we have a look around now, we've got some of the tie downs which seem to be blocks of concrete with cables. And there's a tie down for the propeller to stop it spinning. Some chocks. It's very cool, isn't it? Nicely modelled. Anyway, there you go. So there's the update to the PC6 from Blackbird Simulations. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you have any questions about it, feel free to ask in the comments. And I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody that's been clicking on the Buy Me a Coffee button in YouTube. It makes a huge difference to get feedback from people and to show that they really appreciate what I'm doing here. So I can't say thank you enough to people that have gone and bought me a coffee. So thank you very much. Okay, I'll see you again soon.